Good evening and welcome to the Holy Spirit Blog Talk Radio Show. I'm your host, Mr. Jill Hart, and I thank you all for tuning in. Tonight we have a wonderful show presenting for you, and we're talking about if you know better, you do better. And we're actually talking about guest relations in the hospitality field in general. But not only that, there was a conversation that I had earlier with a dear friend of mine, and we were really just talking about guest services in general, and how service now has really declined. No longer is it professionalism, and I'm talking on every level. You can go to a tire store to get your tires changed, and you walk into the shop, and there you have it. You got the guy on the phone, and you're standing there, and it's a personal phone call because he's on his cell phone, not on the company phone, but he's on his cell phone and giving you the finger, as to say, 1 minute, and yet you're standing there and you're trying to maybe, like I've done a few times, I've tried to get an oil change or get a tire rotated on a lunch break, and then you're at the mercy of this owner or this employee. So we're going to be talking about guest relations as a whole in the first hour, and some of the things that deal with guest relations, because I have written a book that I'm going to be putting out for a lot of small businesses dealing with guest services. There are a multitude of books you can read. There are a multitude of blogs and tutorials dealing with guest relations, and really when you look at them, they really basically say the same things. What I'm really trying to get at, and coming from somebody who's been in the hospitality field for now 40 years, and I've seen some of the pluses and some of the minuses, but yet there is this micromanagement mentality that has really crippled a lot of industry people, because people are no longer wanting to hire people who are qualified. They just want to feel that that position with someone who's younger, and not to discredit young people, because we understand that they got to work too, my God, and they got to grow. But a lot of times you have to really be mindful of when you're dealing with all types of people. And again, we're going to talk about that in just a second, because a lot of it has to do with upbringing and your environment. See, but I mean, and again, there's so much to dive into, but we're going to get a hold of that in just a second, because, man, I tell you, the way kids are growing up now, you know, and they always say, oh, you always talk about the old days. You always, but look, back then people had pride. They had passion about what they did, and they did it in excellence, and they loved their jobs, even if it paid $2 an hour. Because mind you, people, back in the 70s and 60s, it wasn't no 40-hour work week. Folk worked 50 to 70 hours a week, especially these mothers. Many of them had to catch the bus home, 2-3 buses, after working a 10-12-hour shift, only to get home and cook dinner for a bunch of unruly, ungrateful ass kids. And now folks, women, they do 8-hour shift, they lose their damn mind. Got to go to McDonald's or some fast food to throw on dinner. These women were women. They were warrior women. And if you're getting mad, I'm sorry. But as my grandma always say, when people complain about today's society, she say, baby, you ain't scratched the surface. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. And I'm going to give you some of the traits of really, and again, this is from my experience, because I have over 40 years of experience, and I also have written a book dealing with this field, and I love this field. It's been mighty good to me in all my years, and I love pleasing people. I am a people person. Listen, you can call in if you like at area code 347-215-7187 if you really want to chime in on this topic. And we'll be back in just a moment and discuss this a little bit further on guest relations after these messages about getting more dollars into your business. My name is Mr. Jim Harden, and for many businesses, it's rather easy to gain more exposure for their businesses, especially if they are affiliated with an already established company, say like a Starbucks, or McDonald's, or something like that. Many other companies decide not to spend any money on advertisement, and rather, they simply depend on great guest-related services that will spread and people will know you from your good works. Yet for many who truly want to get the word out for what they do and what sets their company apart, well, they tend to put their money where their mouth is and invest in just a little into their future, which pours revenue back into their company. And that's where we come in. On the Holy Spirit Blog Talk Radio Show, we have access to the entire universe at the push of a button. Our listeners come from all parts of the world as well as locally too. And with our show, we broadcast 5 days a week, bringing the latest and most important news to our listeners each and every week. Since we launched the show last year in June, we have had over 4,000 listeners, and we've averaged well over 1,500 listeners each month. There's been 400 listeners who tune in per week. So now that we are growing, many of our listeners have asked us if they could advertise on our show. And after some research and a little bit of work, we're happy to announce that we have confirmation from 5 new businesses already on board, and we thought that this would be a terrific time to offer a special offering for future owners and entrepreneurs to be able to have their business create a newer sale that would strengthen their business as well as develop a stronger and greater community. So our offer is quite simple. If you'd like to advertise with us for 6 months, we're offering a price of $150, which your business will be featured each day, Monday through Friday, twice on each 1-hour broadcast. However, if you'd like to purchase the 1-year package, the asking price is $250 for 1 full year. That's nearly $24 a month of advertisement, as well as if you're doing, and when we're doing any live broadcasting, your business will come along with us, as well as your banners and or your posters. In addition, we invite our clients to offer flyers or business cards for opportunity to share with their potential guests and or clients for your business. We're so honored and so humbled to be able to be in force in gaining new leads by developing stronger communities and guest services to you, to your staff, and to your entire business. We ask you to follow us, this lead at www.holyspiritsradio.org, and you can go to our contact page and fill out that form, and we will be in contact with you in a 24-hour period. We thank you for your response, and we hope to hear from you soon. Again, this is Minister G.L. Harden. We thank you, and may God keep you and continue to bless you. All right, and we're back, and we're talking about guest-related services in this first hour, and just really wanted to touch on a few things initially. Back many years ago, when people were really starting out in this universe, not in the universe, but back in the 30s and 40s and so forth, there were a lot of gifted people. I mean, you had a blacksmith in your neighborhood, you had a barber, you had someone who repaired cars, you had a carpenter, There were a lot of people that God equipped, and they used their abilities to really make a living, so to speak. There were farmers, quite a bit of people. And these were men and women who really were very humble. Although they probably didn't, they looked at it in the beginning as just a livelihood of just making, ends meet. It was a business, really was. If you had a fruit stand or what have you, it was a business. And then as years passed, some people were able to really arise themselves from these wonderful things. There was a wonderful story about what happened in Oklahoma. I think they call it Black Wall Street. And I urge you to go to YouTube and Google Black Wall Street. But I think that was back in the 60s or 50s or whatever it was. Maybe the 40s. But if you Google Black Wall Street, what wonderful documentary about people of color who were flourishing. Wonderful town businessmen. I mean, you name it, man, they did it. Tile, drapery, clothing, they did it all. Hardware, financial, lawyers, doctors. They had their own practices in this wonderful, beautiful community. And what a shame it was that, in the end, the evil forces burned that whole city down. And again, I don't want to give you the whole story. What a shame it is when anybody decides to want to do better for themselves and to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. There's always a demonic force behind it to destroy it. People, I'm getting off track for 1 minute, but I gotta get this out. Don't be fooled by any government. Every government needs the people to depend on. You sitting there like, oh, they on welfare, oh, they didn't get a job. Listen, it is systematically, time and time, even in Atlanta, time and time again, you do your history. When black folk didn't need a damn thing from the government, they burnt them damn towns down. Ran them out of town and burnt it down. And all that stuff in Chicago that's going on. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. I just had to say that. But people were honing their skills and they were doing a wonderful job at learning how to really move their trade. And back then, there was no social media. Folk just knew John Henry down the street, and he was a carpenter. He was a blacksmith. And he groomed horses and so on and so forth. He had a farm. It was all word of mouth. Because everybody back then had one thing in common. They had humility. And they had passion. But humility was the base of every business. Because it's a blessing to have the wherewithal to begin a business. So you have to be humble and so grateful for being able to provide a service, no matter what it is, to some people. And that's an awesome thing. One of the things that you also got to have in having a business, and what these people had back then versus now, they had the right tools. Whatever craft they had, whatever gift they had, they were prepared to open the doors. You got folk now trying to open a restaurant without a liquor license. A clothing store without the damn clothes. Whatever they did back then, they did it in excellence. But I gotta tell you this, people, no matter what region they came from, they had a God, a mighty God that they had faith in and that they built their business on. You even had prostitution rings, all kind of drug rings, mafia. Look, do your history. All of them had faith. Even corrupt crime had faith. People had principles behind what they did. Right or wrong, but they had principles behind what they did. No longer is that the case. You know, people didn't know their business. Nowadays, people don't know their business. They don't want to study. Learn, hone your skills. One of the most important things I love about McDonald's franchise. You can talk about McDonald's all you want, but before you buy one, own one, you got to work for them. You got to know the business and how it flows. Many people that's got money today, especially these athletes and artists and all this and what have you, you know, they open up, you know, I'm going to talk about this in the second hour more in depth, but they gather the money and get a few homeboys and think, voila, put my name on it and poof, there it is. Not the case. I remember some years ago, Deion Sanders, when he played for the Falcons, he didn't own a club, but this guy, but they paid him to use his name, Deion's. I went there a few times back in the day. Didn't have good customer service though, but it was packed every night for quite some while because of the name, Deion's. Folk, you know, and of course he would be there, but folks wanted to be in the place. P. Diddy had a wonderful club, a spot here for a while called Justin's, named after his son, and Buckhead in Atlanta. Was open for a long time. Some of the worst service you could ever get. Food wasn't even good. But folks went there to just to parlay, look good, be fashionable. And one thing, and having a business, I think, and all these things I'm talking about is in my book. You got to have a mentor. People, please find someone who's in the line of work that you're trying to do, or you're trying to get in. I don't care what kind of money you got. Find a mentor that can really carry you through and help you get through those difficult times and those obstacles. You may have all the money to get everything knocked out, knocking down walls and all these wonderful things, and that's incredible. That's awesome. But if you don't have the wherewithal to have someone to call when you're having issues with guests and all those things, you're in a world of trouble. I assure you, you in a world of trouble. Guest services is a wonderful business to be in. I worked at the world's busiest airport down here in Atlanta at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport for 7 years. And so amazing that when you start there, they'll tell you in the orientation that the people are going to be rude, obnoxious. They're going to be racist. They're going to be all types of things to you. They're going to call your names, and they did. I was called a coon, a nigger, you name it. And at the end of the day, you still have to remain professional. Now, for many people, they couldn't handle all that, and a lot of folks say, "Well, you a sellout." But whenever you work for somebody, one of the things you ought to do when you go work for, I don't care if it's a small mom and pop store, you want to pretend like it's yours. Because if you pretend like it's yours every day, that's how you'll come in there with excellence. Now, I know that a lot of companies that you may work for may have a lot of issues, and majority of companies, I don't care if it's a phone company or a light bill, a gas company, or what have you, or some type of high tech company. There's always these companies that the people that work the hardest gets the least, and the snitches and the ones who are sleeping around, they get everything, and that's a whole nother show. Tonight we want to deal with guest services in black and white. And as I say, if you know better, you do better. So right now, I want to deal with 8 steps to really calm down a customer's complaint before you begin to defend yourself and start screaming back and cussing people out. You got to put yourself in the guest shoes, in the customer's shoes. Wonderful article I read in Inc. talked about customer complaints are inevitable. People, they're going to complain. If you run a business that sells to the public, no matter how great your goods are, folk going to complain. Sooner or later, they're gonna do something. You cannot please people 100% of the time. Ain't going to happen. Most customers' concern can be dealt with simply by complying with persons' reasons and their requests. And quite often, however, you will come across customers who will demand something that simply is unwarranted or impossible to deliver. No matter that issue, at the heart of the complaint, it is important to remember there are some rules when resolving your guest services issues. So I'm gonna give these 8 solutions to dealing with customer service or guest services, however you want to put it. But just know, people, some people are just bona fide hell raisers. I worked at this establishment not so long ago, and this woman would come in like every other month, and she would come in there, and she had a routine. She'd come in, she'd go to the menu, she ordered the same damn thing anyway. She go to the menu, she looks at everything, she asks about this, she asks about that, then she goes in for her entree. Then she gets the entree, and she sits there and she waits for it as she's drinking her sweet tea. And then 2 to 3 minutes before the entree comes, she goes to the bathroom for about 8 to 10 minutes. Yeah, 8 to 10 minutes. Then she comes back out, and of course, first thing she said is, this dish is cold. These veggies are raw. On and on she'd go. Food go back in, a whole new plate comes out. Same thing. This is not right. This is too cooked. This is I mean, very meticulous on how she did. It was the same thing. By the end of that meal, that woman got a gift card for $50. Her food paid for, a dessert to go, and a drink to go. I mean, a non-alcoholic drink to go. She was satisfied. Been doing it for 2 years. 2 years running. And nobody put her out yet. So she's a reigning champ as of now. Never gets honored. She don't get loud and get ghetto. Very subtle how she does it. But baby, she gonna do it. And she gets everything she wants. Every single time. So again, some people you can't help them. But here's some 8 solutions you can possibly use to really squash a guest complaint. Number 1, you got to listen. Whenever you set out to handle a customer complaint, the first thing you must do is shut up and listen. Listen to the guest to figure out why they are so pissed off. Listen to the guest to determine whether any of your policies were not abided by, or if this is something outside of not contemplating your system. Listen to what they want from you to resolve the issue. A refund, a replacement, someone else to replace that current service, maybe a new server, or a new employee to deal with, or maybe even the company's phone number. But whatever they want, you got to first listen. And one thing I suggest to any manager, MIT, manager in training or what have you, write it down. They love when you write it down, but also when you write it down, it covers you. Because you're writing down exactly what, you're remembering what they said, and you're writing it down as they say it. Now, I know some people may say, well, no, you don't want to write it down because you can't listen. Oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can look them dead in the eye and write down some keynotes. Unhappy. Salty fries. Server never came back. You can write down some key words to later go back and resolve it. All too often we are so defensive, and I'm talking. Every time I go, I used to go. I used to have a what's that phone? Not T-Mobile, but what's the other one? Metro. Some years ago, when I had a Metro, every Metro place I went to, they had the most terrible guest services. I mean, those employees were horrible. They would be on break. You would have one girl with 30, 40 people in line grabbing a damn ticket, and then you will see them open the door in the back. You got 10 people back there on lunch, on a break at the same time. And they all got managers and supervisors on duty. And then when you snap on them, they get defensive. But being defensive, at least at the outset, can inhibit your ability to truly understand why their guest is not satisfied with your product. They will tell you the problem, how they think it should be resolved, and give you a critical window into their thinking on the matter. So before you say anything about or attempt to explain anything, challenge their complaint or offer a resolution to the situation. Again, listen. And sometimes, banks as well. Some guests are really, really rude. People will, I say it all the time when I go places and it might be a long line but you see the people are working. Go to T-Mobile or something and this don't make no sense. Y'all need some more people in here. Some of the guests are so rudely off the bat. But that means you got to get ghetto too. Again, as I opened up this show, folk back then had humility about what they did. And an abundance of humility. Number two is understand. Put yourself in their shoes. Given what you know, try and see their point of view. Why did they come to you? Is there merit to their complaint? Is a proposed resolution a reasonable given to the issue? Until you view the issue from their perspective, you can't have a complete picture of the reasons for the complaint. So always think, if I was in their shoes, how would I feel? Very important, people.
90 seconds.
Very. Another one is crucial. It's called elevate. Once you've heard the complaint, understand the basis for the same. Elevate the customer to a supervisor or manager, whenever possible. Find somebody who can, a lot of times when you sitting there listening to them and they beating you upside the head, find a manager or supervisor. If the issue is with the frontline employee, this will instantly remove some of it. Not all of the guest acrimonies towards the current representative at that company, allowing them to have a more open conversation with someone else. And be mindful, people, if you introduce the manager on any level to a complaint with a guest, remove yourself. Don't stand there like, no, I didn't say that. No, I didn't. Don't do that. Because you're not gonna solve their problems. Remove yourself if your manager's coming to the plate, so therefore he can hear it from their perspective and then get back to you. Yeah, for the most part, they're going to exaggerate, but most of the time when you're hearing a person's complaint, you can read behind the BS. And often this moves alone and insufficient when you alleviate the person from the problem. Another one is no fighting. You'll be amazed. Again, I got to go back to Metro. I saw a man. He called. Well, actually, he called a guy out of his name, one of the employees at one of the Metros, and he talked about his mama. But it wasn't until he spit on him. That dude jumped behind the counter and beat the hell out of that guy. I mean, look at this split. The guy spat on him for taking too long with one other guest. If you got to defend yourself, but do not fight with a guest. What is the difference you may ask? Oftentimes, it comes down to one: respect. Recall, whether correct or not, your customer believes that they are correct. As such, they may be 100% wrong, but fighting about the issue will only exacerbate the complaint and get you probably thrown in jail. Hopefully it won't. And your job is handling the matter is to listen, understand, and discuss with the guests their concerns in a calm and friendly manner while conducting an open discussion regarding the issue complained of how they will respond. Fighting with the customer will never resolve the issue. It will only lead to heightened aggression and anger on their part. Another is resolution. I like to call it. Resolution. You got to offer it whenever you can, people. Offer resolution whenever you can. Once you have listened and understood the guest's complaint and have avoided fighting over the same, divert the guest focus to how you intend to resolve the matter. Here it is difficult to include all matters of a resolution, but can be offered given the nature of scope of the goods and services which could be offered. A lot of times in fast foods or restaurant, offer them something, free food, free dessert. They're happy. Coupon. You can always resolve it. The psychology of offering a resolution cannot be understated. Recall the goal is to resolve the guest dispute with the customer being fully satisfied with your goods and your services. Even if the guest complains is unwarranted, listen, understand, elevate and offer something form of resolution. Allow the guest to feel that they have won and that they will correct. That's the most important part, people. Another one is resolve. In every guest service situation, you will ultimately come to a point of what you can and cannot do to address the issue. In most cases, you will be able to address the guest issue resolved to their satisfaction. Unfortunately, there come times there will be issues which simply cannot be resolved. Whether it is because the guest is requesting something that is outside of your stated policies or on such matters, or are simply being unreasonable in their request. And for these customers, you must understand that despite your reasonable efforts to offer a reasonable resolution, they are unwilling to join you in reality, and accordingly, although our aim is always to please the guest, if that which the guest demands cannot be satisfied, you must maintain your best offered solution and no more. I remember one time when I was serving this guy, it was a party of 8, and this guy ordered 2 entrees to go for his family, and they left about 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, and then about 11:30, 11:15, whatever it was, about 45 minutes later, the guy comes back, and he's like, "Oh, I left my food." Of course, the busters had thrown it away. Oh man, he was on fire. I mean, he was screaming and cussing. He's like, "No, you're gonna cook my food now." So the manager offered him, imagine the food value was, I think, $50. And this manager gave him a gift card for $150 to come back, and he apologized to him, and he offered, "Hey man, I give you some of the desserts," but the kitchen didn't shut down. You know, everything was done, and they'd already sprayed the chemicals on, you know, cleaning the grills and all that. So, you know, and it had to sit overnight by that time. So, oh, the guy was livid. Didn't want no gift card. He wanted the food. And that was an issue where it couldn't get resolved. And yet he took the desserts. He took about 8 desserts with him, actually. And he left, upset, but there was nothing they could do. But really, he got triple for his trouble. And so there is a wonderful, that's a good observation on when you're trying to resolve and you just can't come to a meeting of the mind, so to speak. Another one would be writing. Ultimately, when all is said and done, and a resolution has or has not been reached, always take the time to memorize the same in writing. If, as in most cases, the matter is resolved to the guest satisfaction, you will want to send a guest a brief follow-up email confirming that the issue has now been resolved and specific resolutions involved. In those unfortunate times when a solution cannot be reached, you want to send an email clearly memorializing what transpired, such that should the issue ever come back again, quickly review the email and be versed in the same as needed. And That is something with this woman I talked to you about earlier. What they would do is they would have to write logs and keep this woman posted, because I tell you, she, you know, and the unfortunate is about this particular company, you know, in most companies they don't like complaints, and they try to resolve complaints, and therefore this woman, she understands that, and every time she wins, she simply wins. And finally, number 8 would be learn. Above all, use guest complaints as a manner to learn about potential flaws in your business. Maintain a manner of tracking guest complaints and resolution thereof. And be more clearer on how you would approach the issue the next time. So important, people. So important that you understand that, you know, you got to listen first. You got to understand, you know, and see where they're coming from. You got to elevate, meaning find a manager, get somebody with higher credentials, and try to find a resolution, a refund, you know, partial refund or something. Try to resolve it. You know, any way you can. That's in reason. Try to resolve it, and then get it in writing. Make sure that it is documented. Whatever the situation may be, document it. And then finally, you want to learn from this. You want to learn from all your guest complaints. Have them dated and have them categorized. Some may be of delay and someone agree. You know, you may be at a T-Mobile and you may stand there for 2-3 minutes and before someone greets you, or they may have an attitude, or they may not be professional. You know, 'cause a lot of young folks that they use, you know, you like, you know, what's up? How you doing? Instead of saying, good afternoon, ma'am, good afternoon, sir, how may I help you? You know, and not only that, when you walk in the door, do they greet you? So many avenues that can be looked into when dealing with guest services. One of the other things that I want to talk about in brief, because this is a long topic I could really get into, but I'm not going to get into it tonight, is a lot of folk dealing in African American communities dealing with guest services. A lot of people don't patronize black businesses because they say poor customer service. And I'm being honest, people. They say it's just poor customer service. And one of the issues dealing with a black-owned, because I have worked for mom and pops, 3 in my lifetime that were black-owned businesses. And one of the problems that they had was, number one, they had their family member, mama, grandma, auntie, and it's always someone who doesn't have the expertise in that field. Cousins, brothers and sisters. But they're thinking, oh, if I get my family in here, you know, they'll watch my back. No, they won't. Don't you know that when you have a business and you put your family in place, they are the biggest thieves? Your family is the biggest haters that you have. That's why I talked about humility and gratefulness and gratitude when having a business, because you're gonna have to have some really spiritual minded people to help you elevate yourself from glory to glory. A lot of times dealing with services dealing in the African American community, especially with our young folk, they too busy on cell phones, texting, Facebook. They're in the back when you walk in the door, and then when you walk in, they don't even greet you professionally. Place isn't clean. Music's too loud. There are conversations going on with the employees that has nothing to do with you, and then 3 minutes later they ask you, "May I help you?" You go into a fast food eatery, the food is just cold, overcooked. And these are truth, people. Not bashing tonight. I watch TV all the time, and all these brothers are on there talking about creating black businesses in our communities, and one thing we have to deal with is guest services in those communities. And we never talk about it. Always talk about what Obama should do, and there's only I know the numbers. I know that with the SBA loans that women, African American women, got well over, I think 80% of it, what have you, or whatever it was, I forgot. And African American men got less than 1%, of loans from SBA. I know the numbers, but we have to do things in excellence. What a shame it is you can go to a high-end area in your downtown area, wherever you live at, and unfortunately it is predominantly white. And what's so silly is most of the time we in there working, and we just so professional. We got humility. We got so much pride. You put us on the south side, that same individual has a whole different mindset. That's why I just said the first thing is spiritual mindedness. You got to have the right spiritual mind to be able to be in business. Love yourselves and know yourselves and know you're worthy and know that you're doing things in excellence and you love to please, and that you are in business to create new businesses. Because you come in there, someone comes in your establishment to have dinner, maybe a beauty salon, and they may be a lawyer, a doctor. Now you're networking because now you gave them professional business. Now they tell me, hey, you want to come down and and see about your case, or maybe a dentistry. Here, $20 off, $200 off any surgery on your dental. It goes hand in hand, people. Hand in hand. Our dollars don't stay in our communities. 8 to 10% in the Hispanic community. Jewish community is 12 to 18% that the dollar changes hands in their own community. In our community, one time. 8 to 10 times, I'm saying. In Hispanic, 12 to 18 times. In Jewish communities, one time in our community do our dollars exchange hands. What a shame that is. It begins with the mind, people. If you're going to own a business in any community, you got to treat it, I mean, like it's Dubai. I mean, just on pave. I mean, treat it like it's heaven. The Bible talks about as it is in heaven, as in earth, so it is in heaven. You gotta pretend like that beauty salon is in heaven, and that's what you want it pristine. I don't care if it's in the hood. You want from the parking lot swept up, the sidewalk clean. When they walk in, they smile. Let me tell you, excellence has nothing to do with, girl, that's brand new. You can shine that bad boy up, man, I'm telling you. And let your light shine from within. Because if you know better, you do better. Very simple. I just wanted to come on tonight to really talk about guest services primarily in our community and really elevating ourselves. And people, speak kind to one another. Speak. Open your mouth. Hi, good morning. How you doing? You look nice today. Be blessed. Peace be unto you. Say something. But speak life. Speak love. But think unity. Listen, my time is up, and I thank you all for tuning in. And this is only a part one of what I'm about to do. I'm doing a whole sequence that is leading up to the book. And I just want to thank you guys for really watching this program. I know it was kind of short and brief tonight, but I'm laying a foundation dealing with spiritualness, because we're moving into a whole new decade, and we're going to have a positive mindset in dealing in guest relations with one another. Again, it does have to do with your environment and your upbringing. And so wonderful that God has blessed me with the opportunity to really sit down and write a book dealing with where you come from and how you can change that mindset of, yeah, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. It was rough, and I had to fight every day and dodge bullets. But here I am now, 22 years old or 20 years old or what have you, and I know my self-worth. That was then, this is now. And I'm better, and I'm greater. And everything that I do, I will do it in excellence. So again, I thank you guys for tuning in. And I hope you were inspired by this broadcast. And as we say in parting, to love yourselves is to know yourselves. And to know yourselves comes by spending time with God. Peace. God bless. And we'll see you soon.